In this episode of the She Dreams in Color video series, there is some conversation about medical diagnosis for ADHD and diet. And it is important that if you have any questions about your own health needs, that you seek the advice of a professional.
She actually walked me down there and made sure I switched my major to chemistry. And it was challenging to get through because it was only 3 girls in the whole program. And the class is full of boys.
Life's a short and precious thing, sweet like honey, and it sure can sting, sure can sting.
In today's edition of the She Dreams in Color video series, we are talking with someone who's beloved in this shop of Sunshine Media Network because she might be related to someone who works here, but that's not why she's a guest today. She's a guest today because I knew from the moment I saw her and met her and was in the presence of her workplace that she was loved. Evelyn Carrasquillo is a high school teacher at the high school where I happen to have graduated, and she is absolutely walking in her calling, and that's what we like to highlight here, women who are walking in their calling. Her occupation is 9th grade math teacher, but it was kind of a very crooked line to get to that place, but thank goodness she's there because the students who have Miss Carrasquillo now and in the past all love her, and I don't think she can go out in public without the Beyonce treatment, which is a testament to how she impacts lives and really changes lives. And so we will talk a little bit more about that. So Evelyn, which I feel like I should say Miss Carrasquillo, just because you're a teacher. Yes. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your obstacle and occupation.
Thank you for having me.
One of the reasons I started this video series is because I was a high school student where you teach, Elle Brown in Kannapolis, and was looking around for role models of careers and occupations. And I thought, well, why not give women and young girls role models? And so teacher is a common occupation that girls such as myself are told you could be a teacher without any real application as if that's a good job or not. But for you, it really is a calling, but it wasn't your first endeavor. So where did you start for your occupation?
I actually started as a chemist. I was a chemist first. I was the first in my family to go to college. And actually even picking that as a career was a little bit challenging because my grandfather was kind of opposed. He felt it was male dominated and he was nervous for me being around chemicals and what was I going to be doing and things like that. But I did that for a little while, and then I did get my calling to become a teacher.
So what it led you to be a pioneer in so many ways in your family, the first to go to college. Where did you look around to see that college was an option for you? Because sometimes if we don't see it, we don't know that it's even a possibility other than movies.
A lot of my teachers told me to go to college because, like I said, no one had gone to college. So I really wasn't pushed at home. Nobody pushed me at home, but I kind of always said I was going to go to college. I was going to go to college for something different, actually, at first. It was a medical tech, a 4-year medical tech. And I had a teacher in the university tell me, no, that's not what you're going to do. We're going to go switch your major. You're going to do chemistry. You're too smart for just doing that. We're going to do chemistry. So she actually walked me down there and made sure I switched my major to chemistry. And it was challenging to get through because it was only 3 girls in the whole program. And the class was full of boys and a lot of difficulties in that way, but I, persevered and I enjoyed it.
I love that. So I love hearing that teachers influenced you down a pathway. Like they saw something in you that was different and magical and special and unique and could be fit into a career and occupation that honored that, which is really neat. And then you said it was a woman professor who said, you have too much aptitude here, right?
Yes. Dr. Delgado from FIU. I don't even know if she's going to watch this, but she was the one that told me, nope, we're going to switch your major. You're going to be a chemist.
So as you go into that now male-dominated industry, kind of foreign to women being chemists, it's not like there's a whole series on women being chemists, right? On TV that we can watch and say, I want to do that when I grow up. What was that like? What was that experience like? Trying out something a little foreign.
Yeah. I started wanting to do forensic chemistry, so I did internships. I thought it was going to be more fun and engaging, and to be honest, it wasn't. It was very routine, and it just didn't like, I guess, fill the hole that I had, like to help people. That's kind of like what I like doing, helping people. So even though I did persevere and I was accomplished in that area, getting the, chemistry degree, which was very hard to do, I wasn't completely satisfied.
Oh, that's so difficult. And we don't have a lot of guides on how to navigate that really muddy water, especially your family now sees you as a college graduate, as someone with the potential for a high paying career, but it's not fulfilling. And so now we have to make that decision of like, which way do I go to really scratch that itch, right?
Because I did take a pay cut to switch.
So kidding, right?
Yeah. So that was a big deal. Like a lot of people were like, why are you doing that? Like you're taking a pay cut. It wasn't like a little pay cut, but my husband supported me. He's like, this is what you want to do. We're going to do it. Like some of my family members struggled in high school and I saw that they were struggling and I was remembering how I struggled. So I was like, I could do this. I could teach. So I did my classes and at first I was teaching science. But there's a lot of math and science. So I was teaching science. And a lot of my students, even while I was teaching science, would tell me, can you be my math teacher too? Because it makes sense when you say things. So that's kind of how, when I first switched, I was teaching science. But math is really my passion.
How would you advise someone? Because I think a lot of women struggle with the safe woman career that we're told, or the lucrative career. I've heard that's kind of how we choose. What advice would you give someone in the lucrative career that isn't feeling the feels over it to make that decision? Maybe they don't have a supportive husband. Maybe they have a husband working against them. Right. Maybe they don't have a family that understands that logic and also isn't super supportive. What advice would you give for that?
If you're reflecting and you realize you're not happy, you're probably really not doing a good job. You're not doing a good job. So do the steps that are necessary to be happy, and then they're going to, make an impact on other people. Because if they're happy doing their job, then they're going to be impacting other people. So I say go for it. If you're not happy with what you're doing, definitely, switch it up and do what you're passionate about. And how long have you been in education? About 17 years. It's always hard because I had a different career before. I'm like, when did I actually start? But about 17 years as a teacher. Yeah. And do you regret the change at all? It's hard sometimes because right now the public, I feel like teachers are not only we're not respected, like they demean us. Teachers are not respected. Yeah. I mean, like I'll see posts from my family and friends and I'm like, and I'm like, wow, this is what you think of teachers? But that's the hardest part, but I don't regret it at all. And definitely not compensated at the level of which they deserve at all. No. Teachers changed my entire life, multiple teachers. How do you put a dollar amount on that? What are the parts of being a teacher that fill your bucket? I just enjoy hanging out with the kids. I say hanging out, I know I'm teaching them, but I hang out with them every day. Every day is different, which is what I love about my job. You come in, you have they tell me story times. They tell me funny things that's happened. So it is entertaining for me just to like hang out and get to know them. And then obviously teach them math as well. That's what fills my bucket. I purposely do try to bond with the kids that I feel like maybe no one sees them or they wouldn't be another teacher's favorite. So I try to like bond with those kids. And make sure that they know that I see them. And I try to like laugh at their jokes and make sure I ask them questions and things like that. And you teach 9th grade, right? Yeah. And high schools and high schoolers terrify me. I am not kidding. When I'm in a school environment, I am very uncomfortable, and high school students are very intimidating. Like, they are militant in my mind. I don't think I'm alone in that. So I feel like you have to be a very special individual to be able to not be completely intimidated by them. I feel like I would get ready in the morning like, are they going to make fun of me in this outfit? I mean, if I let my hair grow out a little too long and I have gray showing, they're like, Miss C, you've got gray highlights today? I've been told that. But I mean, everything's funny. Even if they tell me something like that, I think it's funny. It's endearing. Now, what makes you connect with the ones that aren't seen? That resonates with me because I don't know that my teachers knew what was going on in my
my home life,
Mm-hmm.
but the ones that made me feel loved, oh my gosh, they really just, I mean, they give you a reason to live sometimes. And that's not being dramatic at all. So what makes you connect with the students that aren't seen?
I think the first 4 years of my school life were kind of challenging. I had like undiagnosed ADHD. Second grade, I remember the teacher calling my mom in, telling her, that I was way behind. I couldn't read. I couldn't write anything. They wanted to hold me back. My mom did try to work with me. And she pretty much refused to sign the paper to have me held back. Third grade, still a struggle. Fourth grade was probably the worst year of my life. We were sitting in reading levels, like our desks were by reading levels, and I was in the lowest reading level with all the boys. It was like me and 4 boys. I just couldn't stop talking, and I couldn't stay in my seat. And there was one day where I was running around, I will say. I remember because I was moving when she said it. She was like, I don't know if I change your conduct grade from a D to an F, and I hope I never have another student like you. So that was kind of like a shocking, it was very shocking. That kind of ignited I'm going to show you, because that's my personality. Like, if somebody tells me you can't or you won't, I'm going to show you. Mm-hmm. So I kept working, and I actually moved some reading levels just to kind of prove her wrong. And then 5th grade, I had the teacher that was like, you can do everything. She would tell me every day, you're so pretty. You could do everything. You can do anything. Oh. You can, and she like motivated every single day. It might have not have been every day, but in my memory, it feels like it was every single day that she told me something positive. And that was kind of like the beginning of where I changed.
That's unbelievable. And so impactful all these years later for you to remember that she would say something that cruel to you. Because that really is cruel. Looking back as an adult now, we're grown women. We're like, why did this grown woman say something so mean to a child? But I just want to say 5th grade was a wonderful year for me, too. I had a teacher who loved me, unconditionally loved me. We're still connected, thank goodness for Facebook. And so Miss Williams was a turning point for me in that. And so do you feel like you harness that kind of love that you felt and you try to replicate it for your students?
Yeah, I try to make sure that I never... I say I try because, I'm only human. I can make mistakes. But I really work hard to, not hurt anybody's feelings and make them feel loved and motivated and, consciously try to say the right things, so they can feel like I can do this. I can do this. Like, Missy, believe me, I can do this. And I've had kids tell me, I've never been good at math to you, Missy. I've never liked the math class. And sometimes they're like, I still don't like math, but I like you, Missy.
And that goes back to walking in your calling. When you are doing something you love, like you said, people can see it and feel it and you show up. Could you imagine not being a teacher?
Not really.
Being in the lab all day with the stories that they bring in.
Yeah, no, I enjoy the stories. I couldn't do that.
Do you look back on that teacher you had in 4th grade and are you appreciative of how horrible she was? Or do you think that there was another way you could have found that motivation to push?
I think about that sometimes. In a way, I feel like she was the one that made me be a fighter. So I wonder, if she hadn't done that, would I just, have not fought to be better every year and grow and do honors classes, because I was trying to prove her wrong.
What a hard thing to, we don't want to go through these experiences that we carry until our adult lives. But at the same time, what a gift that she was able to give you in that you found some resilience inside yourself. Because you were loved and supported by your parents. If your mom was fighting for you to not stay behind, right?
Right.
Yeah, they were advocating for you. But sometimes that external force, good and bad, can really move your ship in a big direction. Mm-hmm. So you weren't reading in 2nd and 3rd grade, but then obviously you're super intelligent.
I don't know if I'm super intelligent, but I worked at it. My husband will tell you if she could just get paid to go to school, that's what she would do, because I just love going to class and learning things and random facts. And he'll be like, where'd you get that from? I'm like, I read it somewhere online. But
interesting. And so you said that you were just diagnosed with ADHD, just recently.
Yeah, I was. I had talked to the doctor about it, and she was like, "Yeah, adults get it." And then we kind of talked about it, and then I actually talked to a dietitian about it, and she was like, "There's a correlation between diet, and people with ADHD, like they're either really, really skinny because they get focused too much on food, or the opposite, you gain weight because you're so hyper focused on food. She was like, so you might really want to talk to your doctor again and see if she'll prescribe you. And I was like, okay. I wasn't sure if it was worth it because I had already kind of, you tend to find workarounds. Like, I twitch. Like, nobody likes sitting next to me on the couch when I watch movies because my leg's always twitching. So I have found workarounds to, like, focus and get that extra energy out. But
Interesting. So there's so many questions to ask about that because so when you were growing up, I mean, first of all, even today in 2021, we don't hear about many girls diagnosed with ADHD, let alone adult women, or sharing that information. Do you think that could have helped you back then? Because it's so controversial to talk about someone diagnosing their kid with ADD or ADHD, and it seems like there was like an oversaturation of diagnosis, and then parents pushed back, and now it's not being diagnosed, and we have adults, like you said, overcompensating in different ways or not knowing how that diagnosis manifests in themselves. So do you think that could have helped your education journey if someone had paid attention sooner?
I think so. If it would have been early on, so I wouldn't have had that big gap. I might have become the person I am earlier, just being able to focus and, actually being diagnosed. I don't think anyone really, talked about it as much back then. And as you said, there was a period of time that everybody had ADHD, and then everyone's kind of backing off now. I didn't realize that it would be worthwhile for an adult to get treated or medicated for that. How
are you feeling different? Are you on medication now? You haven't started it yet?
It literally just happened last week.
Oh, wow.
I haven't started it yet.
Yeah. But that behavior has affected your entire academic career since it was undiagnosed and you were kind of self-medicating, through your process. So how do you think it's going to be now that you have help in that process?
And that's actually making me a little nervous because, like, I don't know. Like, I would have to test it out because I have all these, like, workarounds. Like, I just finished my master's. There were, like, little tricks that I did to make sure that I could focus and finish. And I'm worried about starting the medication, and then how's that going to affect, like, all these little workarounds that are just habits.
Yeah. There's still so much stigma to it for children, let alone adults. How are you finding that, navigating that new dialogue?
I mean, in my house, because my youngest he is ADHD, like, I think in the Hispanic culture, they don't like to medicate their kids. Like, so it is even in my house stigma, which is why, like, the prescription's sitting there because I'm hesitant. So the stigma is there, but I think especially in the Hispanic culture, Hispanic families don't want to medicate their kids. We feel like it's a discipline. We have to discipline more. So, I mean, I'm not an expert because I wasn't medicated, and and I found my workarounds, but yeah, definitely it's a stigma. I think especially like in the Hispanic families.
There was an article recently that talked about the lack of diagnosis in girls, and particularly minority girls, Black girls. And so if we don't see it somewhere else, it's easy to have a stigma. It's easy to have a stereotype, but we don't see examples of it out there. And if we don't openly talk about it, when you look back now on your childhood and your academic career, you're able to see the signs that add up to ADHD. And what were those things? How did that manifest in you as a little girl in school?
In school, I was always talking. I was literally always out of my seat, like always. I wouldn't sit regular. I'd cross my legs, or I'd sit under my legs, or sometimes my legs hanging off the back. And I would get in trouble for all those things, like not sitting right, being out of my seat without permission, having to go to the restroom just because I need to get up. So I was, but also I think as a girl, except for my fourth grade teacher, I think teachers are a little more generous because they're like, oh, they're girls. So they're a little more forgiving, I feel like. So, like, nobody ever really was harsh, even though, I was probably corrected in the classroom all the time, up until like 5th grade.
It's interesting you say that because I have a little bit of a different experience. So, I mean, there's all kinds of experiences. Teachers were not forgiving of girls that didn't walk the fine line of being a good girl. And so when I talked too much or when I was antsy or whatever, I was a constant problem. And so, it's okay if a boy wants to run around and hit someone and do the things because that's how boys are, but then girls have to be that good girl syndrome. So that's really interesting that you had that kind of experience from teachers who were kinder in their correction. I could see that. And now, what made you pursue being medicated now, or at least asking the questions about it now as an adult?
I have a couple friends that told me that they're medicated, and I was like, oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, I feel like I'm learning a lot myself. So as you look back on your career as an educator, what personality traits do you think someone needs to be a really good teacher?
I think you need to like kids, which
Don't find teenagers horrifying.
Don't find teenagers horrifying. But I mean, I think that's got to be number one. And I know it sounds kind of silly, but kids are going to know if you don't want to be there, if you don't like them, or you don't want to be there. So you really have to enjoy the kids, whatever level that you want to teach. You have to, really want to, be able to bond with them and enjoy spending time with them. I feel like you do also have to be very, not necessarily detailed oriented, but complete follow through. You have to be able to handle about 10, 20 things all at the same time. So if you're easily overwhelmed with 10, 20 things happening, that's at the same time, that's probably not the job for you. And sense of humor. You have to have a sense of humor. So bonding with the kids, being able to handle trial by fire every day are probably the main things.
Do you bond with them on a maternal level almost?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, sometimes I've fed kids. I've brought them lunches. If I realize, at our school, they do get free lunch, but sometimes they're just hungry. So I do, nurturing them, caring about them, just asking them about their day and about their life. So that you know more about them, so they know that you really do care. When you start asking them questions about them, they do know that you care.
Do you see around you, not in your school system, but do you see around you the people who are in that career pathway, but maybe it's not meant for them, but they're just following the rules, like the good girl syndrome? This is a career that has, a lot of accolade to it, and they're just kind of following that pathway that was laid out for them, and it's too late to change.
I have seen that. And I'm always in my head, I guess I don't actually verbalize it to them, but I'm thinking it's not too late. If this is not what you like, you need to find something else. Do what you want to do. Change, follow that path. Once you have that degree, you don't have to use it in the way it was intended. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, even just having the degree is going to open the door. It might be something totally different. I would say pursue it. Don't wait. Don't keep waiting. Make the jump and give it a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, because that feeling, that gnawing feeling of not being fulfilled, it keeps you up at night. Yep. No matter what everyone says about what you should do, ultimately we have to find some sort of motivation. So you mentioned using that fourth grade teacher that was cruel. How long did that motivation last to prove her wrong?
It's hard to say because it was like a dominoes effect. I went to fifth grade, I had that kind of teacher that helped me see that I could do anything. And then I just kept trying different things that, nobody necessarily expected me to do. I mean, I really didn't have anyone at my house telling me take honors or do this or any of that stuff. I do like to learn. So I was that goofy kid that would go to summer school for fun and take a computer programming class or an art class. But my personality is, if someone tells me you can't, or you can't do that, I'm like, watch me. Even back when I switched to teaching, that I moved from states, I had to take the math test, a certification test. And my first year at A.L. Brown, I had several teachers like, "Oh, you haven't done calculus in 20 years. You're not going to pass that test. You'll pass it eventually, but you're just not going to pass it." And watch me.
Does everybody have that personality to be able to say, I'm going to prove you wrong, or I'm going to do it, or this is what I'm determined to do, or is it unique? Or like, I'm always curious, like how that shows up in people. And you see students. So do you see students with that characteristic and others with not? Since you have a large sample population.
Even like in my family or friends, like you'll have people like, I'm going to do it, I'm going to make it. And then you have other people that bring the excuses. That, you know, that's how I see it. The difference is it's, you know, I'm going to show you, or I'm going to show you excuses. Oh, this is why I can't do it. This is why I can't do it now. This is why I can't. This, you know, my life is terrible. My life is terrible. So I do see that. Or like in the classroom, they'll be like, oh, I'm not good at math. I've never been good at math. And then I'll like joke with them and I'm like, this will be the year. You're going to tell me. And I mean, I can't tell you that I catch every student and every student loves math, but I mean, probably every single year in every class, there's at least one or two that are like, this makes sense this year. I don't know how that happened. I'm like, I told you.
And so then you shift them from being an excuse giver to a prover, because now they want to prove you proud.
Yeah.
Right? Prove them wrong or prove them proud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I hope the journey to learn more about ADHD and adulthood, you know, unfolds. And the awesome thing is I'm confident you're going to do tons of research about it. And you'll also understand the pharmaceutical chemical makeup of everything. So you have an advantage. You might need to like start a blog or something to help other women navigating this, you know, journey in their own lives as more people talk about it and are open to learning more about it. So thank you. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. I appreciate it.
I love being here.
We like to have a t-shirt that kind of symbolizes the occupation or obstacle the woman shared in our She Dreams in Color video series. And today, Evelyn talked about not being diagnosed with ADHD in her early formative years and how that affected her journey in school and even now her life as a teacher. But there's still a stigma attached to being diagnosed with ADD and ADHD. And so today's t-shirt we chose actually says, label me love. Because regardless of the labels we're given, ultimately we should only be labeled in love. This shirt is from Coach Kami Andrea. Coach Kami has been a life coach for the past 17 years. She's based here in Charlotte, and this t-shirt is from her Be the Catalyst collection. She really works to teach people to walk in healing and love and acceptance, and that the only label that really matters is love.
It's our turn, won't let it burn. It's our turn.